being so gracious. And we are filming here on our YouTube channel as well as on Blog Talk. And today's topic, let's not forget about the hot topic of today. Our topic is on polygamy. Who does it benefit? How can you benefit from polygamy? And we are talking about who created polygamy. And let's not monogamous relationship because it's just the opposite of polygamy. What does it mean? Polygamy means to have more than one wife. And it isn't something that the men just thought of and decided to do, but this particular creation was invented by the Black residency in the house, who was a specialist and live certified marriage and family therapist that was with us yesterday. And today we're talking about polygamy and what is polygamy and who needs it and who can it benefit. We're talking about an ancient old concept that was created by a Black African woman. She requested it, ladies and gentlemen. And it's not something that the man requested. And why would she request something? Share a husband with another woman. Now, how successful was it? Statistics has it that it was very successful. And some of you fairly rich individuals endeavored in this. And the man had to have some money behind him because he had to be able to show his mistress, potential wife, that he could financially afford her. And if he could not give both women the same thing, then he had no prerequisite for going into this. Polygamy is coming back, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm saying to the African American specialists who are counselors, who are advisors, who are ministers, and family life therapists to start working on dusting off this concept, because our actual prophecy reads in the biblio opinion, and I'm going to solicit for you to tell me if this is one of those ancient concepts that we should dust off, tweet it, and bring it back to life. Because there are women now that are currently dating the same man, and some of them actually know it. So if they know it, then are they excelling in this relationship, or are they, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I just really, polygamy. And there's also monogamous. And monogamous is the heterogeneous who marries in a setting with a female and with a male with only one wife. Whereas when we look at polygamy, we're talking about a man who takes on more than one wife, a man who decides that he's going to be able to give his wife, both wives, the same identical thing. And he can provide for them financially, providing a roof over their head, giving them the desires of their heart. He cannot make a difference with one or the other. And if he doesn't have the financial gain to enter into this relationship, it would be advisable that he not marry in a polygamous situation because of the fact he has to be able to give this woman the same thing that he gives the other. And we want you to understand that polygamy is not outdated. There are young women right now, as I speak, that are engaging in polygamous situation, and they are acknowledging each other. So, what do we do about that? Do we go back and get this old concept, dust it off a bit, bring it back in, tweet it, and allow our sisters to be able to exercise using this particular procedure? Now, if you are not aware of it or not, this was created, polygamy, by an African woman. Yes, and it was written in the Bible that there were going to be a prophecy that there would be 7 women to every one man. So therefore, we know it's a shortage already, and we experiencing the shortage right now as we speak. There are so many women that are going out to find a husband, but the procedure you're going to use, polygamy, and it has to be discussed up front with your significant other, and they have to both agree on it. But if the man decides to get into a polygamous situation, he goes out and he finds that other wife, and he does not tell the initial wife, then that is grounds for consultation. And possibly the woman might want to the vows of the matrimony. So it's very important that in a relationship, they know up front that a man is going to eventually go out and find himself another wife. And if that spouse could go into his wife and said, now I think it's time for me to bring that second wife into the home. And at that particular point, the husband and the wife makes a decision on who is the lucky girl to this relationship. Let's go to commercial, ladies and gentlemen. We'll talk about polygamy. Who can benefit from polygamy? Is it the female, or it be beneficial for any man that's a businessman? And that woman would see herself being equal to that new wife, and they would both be seen in the courtyard together being sported by their second wife, because the dusty road, hold tight. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me here on Oracle Divination Network. And we are glad that you have followed us. I'd like for you to follow the leader, go out and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as be a follower, and leave a description and tell somebody about my show. Bring a friend next time. Also, go over to our YouTube, least one of our websites finished. The Montu Enterprises.biz has been up, and we decided we wanted to tweet it because we want to make sure that our shopping basket works. But we have a live website that's interchangeable where you can interact with it. And there are things to do on that website. There are CDs for you to listen to. Okay, here, load it. And will allow you to download some of the Blog Talk radio station shows. And in that particular website, there is a collection of those, and there will be some information about where I'll be performing my poetry, so then that way you can follow along. And I definitely like for you to become a member, and that member would allow you to be an actual person who could come on. That we're talking about polygamy. And we have already indicated that it is a concept that African American women have created. And this isn't something that the man created and that he wants to benefit from, but it is a program who will benefit from because she is not the only one. No, it is a traditional African concept where the whole family benefits from having more than one wife. And the man in the situation has allowed the woman to even interview. This woman must have her own home, and she must also be visited by the husband and given time, intimacy time with her husband. So the first wife is sharing her husband intimately. And a lot of women are just not up for that type of sharing. You have to be a pretty doggone strong woman to share your significant other with someone else and know the benefit for the whole family. Now, question, do these two women get to meet each other? Do they get to find out about each other? Yes, they do. They are introduced and they are functioning together as a family. Usually, you will see these women in a setting together, functioning like sisters together and being an attribute to the household in both households. Now, how are we going to get around this thing when it comes to who's them equal time and adoring both of them equally as crop up? And will it be a problem in the relationship? And how people that are opinionated out there and that have a man that wants to go into a polygamous situation. The first thing I would say to him is make sure he's thought that thing out. Make sure that he has plenty of money in the bank because women are very, very costly. And it's going to cost a lot of money to meet their needs. Not only providing for the house, but some women like to be sported. Not only courted, they want to be taken out and they want to be shown out. Most of these relationships are traditional African relationships who are from the Muslim faith and from the African spiritualist faith. Now, they have done this for eons, and this particular has worked successfully in the household of the African families. Now, you must understand that this process must be discussed thoroughly with the wife and with the husband. And if there should be any problem with having the second wife, once she's come into the home, then they all deal with it like grown people and they discuss this problem out openly. It is not something that the husband has to deal with. And if it doesn't work out, there's a dowry that's being given. Now, I don't know if you know this money to go and establish themselves. So they're not broke. You're not looking at any broke, and the thing does happen, and that they do get along, and this relationship gets off the ground flying with colors, and they are both enjoying their honeymoons together. I would think that a husband might want to take on a wife after he's discovered his wife cannot bear a child for him and he wants a child and he wants to be able to bring up a lot of children to help him in his business. Then the wife could have another wife because his first wife cannot produce a litter of children. She could clearly see those circumstances and go along with it and realize that this woman is welcome into the home because she's going to be able to bore children for her husband. Now, in that case, we don't want the Hagar situation to happen where the husband becomes very, very, you know, he becomes very, very entertaining of that second wife, and he starts loving her more than the first wife. Now, then you might see the first wife tell Hagar to get out and to take her illegitimate son with her. Now, I've seen this take place in the Bible, but those circumstances were not readily dealt with the proper way. You ended up having a woman that had her son out there who was the first son, duking it out with his son, was the second son. So they were trying to develop who had the reign over the father, the first or the second. But nevertheless, these are all domestic problems that can be worked out. Now, you must choose wisely, though, husband. You must choose wisely about doing this because this is no game, and you certainly don't want to have all kinds of gnashing of teeth come up on you. Let's go to commercial. We'll be right back at you. Hold tight. All right, and we are back. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here with me this afternoon. Uh, we are talking about polygamy. Who's going to benefit from polygamy, and does the female benefit from it, or does the male? What about the children? How are they reared, and who raises the children? Well, They're all raised together, and each wife will interact with the husband in rearing the children. They all make the decision together as to what these children are going to do, how they're going to work in the home, and how are they going to transition out into the community. And whose name will be on their head? Their father's name will be on their head. And can we use this in today's time for reordering, administered by the preacher, by the priest or priestess? How can today's women who are in the secular world benefit from going into a polygamous situation? Is there anyone out there in the audience that has an opinion, that would like to voice their opinion on this topic? You can do so by calling 760-539-3247. We have had problems with relationships, not having enough men to service all of the women, and women going with other men anyway. Now, let me introduce you to the actual mixed race, and that could be Afro mixed race or Afro Creole. In the Creoles community, there was something where Black women were taken for mistress for the white Caucasian men, and they were already sharing someone else's wife. And they were performing and having children with these mistresses, and they bore children and gave these children their name. Yes, they did. These women in the French quarters in New Orleans were given, their children were given their pappy's name. And it wasn't a secret to anyone that these women in the French quarters were being treated differently. They could do things that other slaves could not do. Now, we're getting a bit off the subject, but we're indirectly talking about men who take other women as a mistress. Okay, that's a little bit different. So we're detouring a little bit. So how did this thing work with the Creole women? How did it work with the mulatto women? Usually these women were very fair and could pass for, they could actually pass for a white woman in certain societies. However, the law came out with Plessy Ferguson, where he took his case to court. His case was one where he bought a ticket to sit in the white section of the train or bus, I'm not certain. But he was in violation because he was not supposed to sit in that area. But he said if he only had 7/8, if he had 7/8 blood of white blood in him, then he was classified as a white man, what he thought. He took it to court, and when he took it to court, the court ruled against him that he was wrong and in violation. And out of that court case came the 1 drop blood. If you had 1 drop African-American blood in you, then you were Black. And it came, the separate but equal came out of that court case also. So in reality, it was discovered that 1 drop of blood would make you tainted as an African. But nevertheless, these women that were Spanish and French descendant, usually their mothers were mixed, and mothers were Black, and then some white Frenchmen had their way with them, and they produced these mixed mulatto children, which sometimes they had a mixture of African American, Latin, they had a mixture of French and Spanish, and they were called mulattoes. And they were actually brought to the ball. They were brought to the ball to dance with these white men, and they were put up in the quarters called the French quarters, and they were allowed to be free. They literally had their freedom. They were not enslaved like the other slaves, and they had a right to vote. So they had all these rights. So there was some benefit in them allowing themselves to be the mistress of a white man. Now, that history is all written down right over there in Louisiana, right before the Louisiana Purchase. All of that's written down. And those mistresses, they became the freed Black people. And they were not incarcerated to become slaves. They might have been wet nurses and did a little housework, but they were nothing like a slave. They were not descendants of slaves. They were descendants of free people. So let's get back to the tradition and not get too far away. We're talking about polygamy here, which is a grave difference. It's about a man taking on two wives and trying to manage them. We both know that it's difficult to just manage one woman. Sometimes she can be more than one woman. So what kind of man are we talking about that would take on two wives? A man of significance, a man of stature, a man of wealth. Most of these people that were mixed race, they had money because most of them didn't have to work hard and they were given money by the mistress fathers. But nevertheless, we're talking about Africans here. Are there any rich African men out there? Why, yes, it is. There are a lot of rich African men out there who are practicing polygamy today. And they're taking care of two households and they're providing for them. Now, is this something that I would like to have? No. We would go and release men from prison and help them to meet some single women so that they can wed. And you're not rich, you might not want to venture out into this particular interested in a relationship. You definitely have got to lay the ground rules and you got to lay down the All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we're working it out here in this room, and we are asking for those out there who would like to help us to give their opinion on this topic. Polygamy, is it a hot topic? Is it something that men need to consider? And are women going to be better off by indulging in polygamy? And what about a monogamous relationship, one that heterosexuals enter into? And they're having a hard enough time trying to stay in these marriages. How do you think a dual marriage would work with two women in the relationship? Would this be much easier for the man, or would he be taking on extra work that he needs to reconsider? How do you take on a second wife? If you're a man that's looking to engage in a second wife, do you tell your first wife first? And do you ask her to go and shop around for you and find that second wife? Well, I knew a community that actually were engaging in polygamous relationship, quite a few of the Muslims. And I knew them. And I saw the woman go and start to look around for that new wife that was going to come into the family. And usually it was a little distortion because the person that they were talking to was not engaged in understanding what a polygamous relationship was, but yet they were lonely enough to consider it. And some of the women considered it, and they brought the woman home to be interviewed by the husband. Now, nevertheless, we're going to see more of this going on than usual, because there's going to be 7 women for every one man that is going to need to have her head covered. And she's just going to say, quoting from the Bible, she's going to say, I just want to have my head covered. Just let me bear your name. So what is in a name? Why would a woman just want to carry the man's name? Is there something beneficial in a name? Can a woman get extra brownie points for carrying a man's name? Well, most women don't want to be an old maid, and they don't want to be thought of as an old maid, somebody that's not chosen. Every woman wants to be chosen to be that bride to be. Remember Coming to America and how Eddie Murphy went around and interviewed all these women to make a decision as who the bride to be would actually be. Now, back in his homeland, I'm sure his mama and his daddy wanted him to take on more than one wife, and that was their custom. But he came to the United States, to look for his queen, and he was only figuring out to take on one woman, which was Lisa in the movie. And he took her on, and that was all he needed. There wasn't a part two about him taking a second wife. Now, I'd like to be creative and say, why doesn't Eddie Murphy do a part two and bring Lisa back and take on that second wife, so we can see how polygamy really works over in Africa? And we can get a taste of what this polygamy is all about. Wouldn't that be a great take for a movie? And I do know that in the movie, Eddie Murphy was royalty. Money was no issue to him, and he could actually afford a second wife. Now, he came from a kingdom where he had his money with his own image on it. And if he was that rich, you know, he could have taken on more than one Lisa, and he could probably provide for both of them equally well. That's what the whole kick is. Can a man provide equally well? Does a man have income coming in where he can take care of households? Now, most men that are out there now are struggling to get one job, and they're not thinking about taking on a second wife, but they have ran into situations where they knew a woman before they met the woman to be, and that one, because they know if they were the first wife will always have privileges that the second wife doesn't have. Now, what can some of those privileges be? Does anybody know? Phone lines are open now, 760-539-3247. Some of those privileges could be that the first wife will always be in position that she would rule over the second wife. She would be like the eldest woman, training the younger wife to follow her pursuit and to step in when needed and to act more like a servant than a real wife. That could be approved upon by the husband before the new wife gets there. And if that is all in writing, he must support it and he must reinforce it. But there could be some great gains that come out of being in a polygamous situation when you don't have a chance of getting married and you're rolling up on that magical age where you need to use your eggs or lose them or freeze them away. Some women are worried about whether or not there's going to be enough time left for them to produce a child. And they want to get into a relationship. And sometimes it's not possible with an existing man that doesn't have a wife, but it's more likely that a man that has a wife is looking for new entertainment from a second wife. And if that first wife is open-minded, she would probably consider it. Maybe she is worn out and maybe she's tired of trying to produce a child that she knows she won't ever produce and wants a handmaiden to come into the relationship to have that second child or have that first child so that she can bail out and be the wife that she wants to be. But who's going to benefit from this polygamy relationship? Is it the man? Is it the woman? Who's going to benefit? You tell me. Is there one that's going to benefit over the other? And who actually has the marriage license? There could only be one marriage license. You guessed it. Is someone calling in to give me that answer? 760-539-3247. who is actually going to hold the marriage certificate? There can only be one marriage certificate in there. Why, you guessed it. That's right. The first wife will always carry the marriage certificate, and she will be the one that's legally married to the man. Now, he can work out something in one of his trust that he took on another woman through common law. She would be common law married after 7 years. And that first wife would have it made because she's in a position of the first wife and she has the marriage certificate. But the second wife will not gain a marriage certificate, only a common law status after 7 years. And then after 7 years, if the man should expire, they split everything and they both get something from the relationship if she has completed her 7 years. Now, there has to be laws drawn up and there has to be documentation drawn up. Do you think that the lawyer would know about the procedure for this common law? Well, they would have to make it as if they had a trust fund and everything would be put in the name of both wives in the trust fund. So there has to be a lot of legality and legal work done before this could be successful. But it is a path that one should take if a man has not had a child by his first wife and he needs to bear children to leave his legacy to, for his legacy. Yes, he could definitely sit down with both wives and write up an actual contract to put in his trust fund as to how he's going to leave his money for both of his wives. Now, let's take a break again. Hold tight. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is your Omika, and we are discussing polygamy. And we're looking at who benefits from polygamy. Is it the wives or is it the husband? And how does someone lay out a plan as grand as this to explain how the finance will be divvied out and who will be entitled to what? Now, you're out there listening in, and I'm sure you have plenty of answers. You can dial in at 76539 3247. Once again, 760-539-3247. Call in and give us your opinion. We're talking about a polygamous relationship. We know that this is something that has been done back in eon times, back over in the African tradition with the Muslim families. Currently, the Muslims are pulling this out of their bags, and some of them are participating in it just as we speak. How are they faring in this particular type of relationship? Are they really, really staying together long periods of time? Are they breaking up overnight? And how can one benefit from this particular concept? I think the woman will benefit the most because she has a name to carry over her head, and the man has a responsibility of taking care of her. She doesn't have that responsibility of taking care of her own financial needs. When he take her into a marriage, he is saying, I have a full yard of money to take care of her, all of her financial needs, and they will be met, and not one of them will she have to take care of. I think that's a pretty good deal, 100%. Then you know that there's a contract that's going to be signed, and he's going to support you in all your needs and everything you need done. However, you're going to have to do your womanly duties now, and you'll be required to produce children for this man. So there's some appropriation going on. And you must understand that he needs a wife that can have his supper ready, have his clothes mended, have his clothes ironed and washed and ironed, and to take care of the children. So this is about some work. This is a real job that you're committed to. People don't realize that child care and taking care of the household and the children is a real job. So you're going to be paid your keep. You're going to be paid what your worth is. And at the same time, this man is going to have someone to take and show off at the courtyard, and from periodically go out to a dance and expose you to others. But it's a job. Nevertheless, my question is, how many of you women out there want the job? If you're out there and you're looking for a husband and you want the job, call in and tell us about it. 760-539-3247. You can call in and give us your opinion about how you feel about taking on the chore of another wife being in the marriage with you. Can you handle it? And what do you prescribe that is done to make it successful? How can we make this thing called polygamy successful? And how can we make it work? What are the things that we have to do to tweak it and bring it up to date? For one, you'd have to modernize it. And modernizing it, we'd have to have a marriage and family therapist to market it and to use it within her grasp. Now, here's my take on it. Now, I had a philosophy, according to God, that every person that got married, and when they get married, that they do not necessarily come into the relationship with children, that they put off having these children, and that they look at the possibility of waiting it out before they have children for the first 5 years and go into a common law situation. They're not married. They're in common law. It's a trial marriage, and they're trying it out. They're trying to see how it works. After 5 years, they're given 5 years to work it out. During that time, they're not appropriating and they're not having children. They're building their bank accounts. They're building money in their bank accounts so that they can buy their first home. Then after the 5 years, that 6 year they go to the courthouse, they are now going to request a marriage license. And then they're going to get married because the child cannot be born out of wedlock. And once they request the marriage license, now they can appropriate and produce a child and give the child the father's name because she is legally married to him. Now the wife can come home and be a wife and start rearing that child. And the monies that they've saved, they use that money to purchase their first home. Now, things have got to be done in decent order, and mothers can't be expected to be at work while they're at home breastfeeding. And a lot of women want to breastfeed. They're torn between how they're going to manage their households and how they are going to go to work. So we have to get very, very understanding that you cannot spread a woman too thin where she is not taking care of herself and she's putting too much attention in that job. That baby and that house is her first job. And sir, you must let her know that. So therefore, she has worked the first 5 years. You are giving her permission to go home and to have a child and to rear it. After that 6 years, at that particular point, the baby is ready to go into school and to start off their kindergarten years. If the mother and you financially see that you have enough money where she can still stay home and run a business out of her home, then we continue to keep mother there. But if the bank account is drained and you now need more income to manage the house, then maybe she can take a part-time job. A woman has no business taking a full-time job while the children are still infants and toddlers. And men, if you say you're taking care of this woman, then you must be prepared to foot the full bill because she's in childbearing stage and she can be taken out of the workforce at any given time. And you have to make sure that she's not overstressed and overworked in order to go and make a paycheck so she can help you. Her part-time job must help you. And her other job is to first keep food in that house, keep the house clean, and manage the children so that they're doing well in school. But we certainly cannot be out here working while the children are suffering and you're running back and forth up to that school. Hold tight. We're going to commercial. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on to the show. We'd like for you to also call in now. Why don't you dial those digits at 760-539-3247? And we're talking about polygamy. Who benefits from polygamy the most? Is it the females or is it the husband? And how do we pull off a thing like this? Now, I was just explaining to you my philosophy of the woman not working the first 5 years, going into a trial marriage called common law. I don't know if you know this or not, but in the relationship that Mary was in, Jesus' mother, with her significant other, she was in a trial marriage. Do you not understand that in order to produce a male child that's immaculate conception, the female only has an XX chromosome. She needs a Y chromosome to be able to produce that male child. All eggs and babies and infants are born here as a female egg. It has to be made into a male egg, and that is the immaculate conception when it's converted from a female to a male egg. So all eggs are born here as a female. There has to be a ritual of some sort. Who's had a male child, her eggs have gone through a transformation from the female to the male. And that is what we call the actual, that is what we were talking about in Immaculate Conception. All women have had that. Mary got pregnant during her trial period of the marriage. And that particular trial period was called the stage that she was not supposed to get to have a child, because they were trying everything out, and through their customs they had a trial marriage, and Mary got pregnant during this trial marriage. And when you have a child, if it's a male, your eggs have gone through a ritual. And if it's a male child, it's converted from a female egg to a male through the ritualistic dance that's done around the eggs and the sperm. So every woman has the capability of producing a male child. Let's see who we have here. Hello, 111. Can I
Yes,
get your
yes,
opinion?
yes. This is Mike. This is Mike. How are you today, dear?
I'm just fine. How are you, Mike?
Yes, I mean, your title is saying that uh, is necessary to teach polygamy, which means multiplicity of the woman. Yeah, am I right or wrong?
Yes, you're right.
Okay, so you know, origin of the polygamy came from Muhammad in Islam, and Islam they can have up to 40 women.
Oh,
40
really?
women
Mhm.
means they can have polygamy up to 4, yes, with
Okay.
one man,
Uh-huh.
and it still is practicing in Nigeria, Middle East, and pretty much majority of the Islamic nation. And then we come back here in the United States. Yeah,
Yes. And how do you
and they're doing
perceive?
that. And
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I just wanted to understand, how do you
No,
perceive,
you
how do you perceive that it could work here in the United States?
No. I mean, in the United States, we have Mormons that are doing it still. Some Mormons are still doing it up to today, maybe underground or overground, but still they're doing it. And if you want my humble opinion, is that polygamy, I mean, you cannot, okay, for example, I have 3 wives, okay?
Mhm.
And, I must have loved one of them more than another. There's no question about it.
Mhm.
You cannot have love the other 2 same as the first or second one, whichever you love most. And so if that's the problem, and yet polygamy, maybe one time it was necessity So, so what happened? You know, even one man married with one woman, maybe is what about the other? So they had to put a law polygamy in Islam in 1400th century ago, and so they had to take care of those women as well with one man. But now these days is not applicable to today's society.
Well, no, what is your name again? What did you say your name was?
Mike,
Oh, Mike. I think because of
Mike.
Mike, the society we have today, they frown upon it because they think that the man could not possibly love the second wife the same. But it is a political thing and it is a business arrangement because you're looking to advance the household children. You're looking for that man to have a legacy of number of children if the first wife cannot produce children. And you're also looking to see if the more children you have, the more wealthier it usually makes the man. And if his first wife cannot produce children, he feels like he's lost his legacy. His legacy has become stunted. So that must be agreed upon by his first wife and him that he would take on that second wife so he could produce those children. And then it becomes a business arrangement, wouldn't you think?
I mean, I know an spiritual Muslim leader in Indonesia sent a message to all the Muslims in America. It says, if you live in the cities, you're still ruined. Why not you get low income singles, older women, take them in the suburb cities, make them a great, place, and each one live in their own apartments, etc., and take care of them and take care of their social security because they give you their social security because they depend on you to take care of them. And put them a medical center there, put anything is necessary to make these people healthy back. I mean, it says 40 was the rule. This guy, he said 60. Now you can get married in Islam up to 60 and take them to the suburb of any cities that you live.
Yes, that sounds good, Mike. You are right. There are a number of women that are living alone and they don't have a male present in their house. And we keep talking about getting the women off welfare. This will be one of the ways of getting them off welfare to provide them with a husband that's working. Then you can get them off welfare immediately. But back in the 80s, we took all of the males out of the women homes who were in the inner city, the urban cities. And we displaced those women, and then they had to go to work. So they stopped being parents to their children. Then they had their children taken away. So we created a problem where we removed the man, and then we set it up so that the mother couldn't do a very good job of rearing the children and going to work. So she lost her children to the system. And now the mother is strung out. She's on drugs. She's upset because her children are gone. Her whole family has been broken down. And the way to resolve that is to bring the man back in the home, allow her to sit at home and be the real parent that she should be. Because you're finding that the baby boomers now, they are out, retiring. But we got a whole group of young people that are working 2 and 3 jobs, and they can never be mothers because they're working night and day just to get what the Joneses have, and then their families are falling apart. So we got to think of a way to bring back polygamy, to revamp it, to refurbish it, and then reintroduce it because a lot of young women could benefit from it. Wouldn't you say so?
To me, I mean, become like a group sex, basically. What's the difference with that?
Right, absolutely. They're doing
Am I
it.
right or wrong?
They're doing that anyway, and they're doing the swingers, and they are having more than one guy, and they're hanging out. So they're doing that. That is not being announced, but it's happening. But why not legitimize it and make it legitimate so that when it's done in decent order? So it would be to the benefit to see that this concept benefited a lot of households. And if you look over the history, those families who did present this in their home, they were rich, not only in financial gain, but in families who could work in the business and who could prosper the business. We have a lot of poor women who are never going to get wealth as long as they stay single. Being married means bringing both of your social securities together to have something. It means bringing both of your pensions together to have something. And you got women that are never going to make it up to the boardroom, and they think, I'm going to someday make it rich, I'm going to advance myself. They shouldn't have this kind of commitment to the workforce. It should be to their families and rearing their children so that the children one day can stand up and call them glory. But most of their children are being taken away, put in foster cares, and repeating all of these hideous crimes because they haven't had a parent, or they haven't had a man and a woman at home to role model for them. Some of these boys will never see a father. And that's a disgrace. And we got
I
men,
know.
you know.
Yeah, I know the fact that it was in Utah. There was a city, and he put, say, wife number one in charge of, customer service or in the front door of the municipality, yeah, and he was the mayor, and he had like 80 wives,
80?
and
Oh.
all the 80 wives was working for him in the government in that city. I forget, but if you Google it, I'm sure you will find it. So what happened? I mean, when he had a time table, I mean, a schedule to go with. I mean, if any of the women wants sexual encounter with him, they had to reserve it. They had to go to this XYZ lady and say, hey, this is open. Okay, I need that. So I want, if one man and say 80 women, or even say, okay, 40 women, make it more realistic. How is that possible? You know,
Well,
you know,
he would have,
all these women will not get jealous,
right. Well, see,
honestly, because
I think
we
it
don't
would be a
know
problem to have that
if
many women.
this mayor loves all of them equally, or maybe two or three of them more than others, or etc. Go ahead, please.
Hmm. Well, I think it would be a problem for 80 women because you can't mentally satisfy, or you can't mentally stabilize. So you're not only having sex, you have to also mentally stabilize these women's brain. A man has to speak into their lives and has to help them to congregate their plan of life. So a man actually helps to season a woman. He cannot possibly season 80 women and do a good job of it. So it's not just the sex we're talking about, it's talking about putting his spirit in the women so that they both have the same concept and they amalgamate into one philosophy, one belief for their plan. Because there has to be a plan that he lays down on the table and say, I need a helpmate to help me with this plan. And sometimes it takes more than one woman to help, like you described in the business. And the women could be situated throughout the business. And when he writes up his trust or his legacy to leave for these women, they're all taken care of and the business keeps running. It doesn't stop when he dies. And we got the wrong concept. I came from a big family, a huge family, and our family understood the benefit of taking a large clan of people and strategically placing them in a business to work. Then the business grew. Then everybody had meat to eat and the house was satisfied. And the main purpose of having a family is that you bring groups of people together to leave your legacy with, to extend your young children, so that when you go out in the courtyard and long after you die, your name is still being echoed because you have built the legacy for yourself. But people think that getting these men or these sheiks that come in and say, I want to do polygamy, they have much money to give. That's what makes the world go around and function properly. And without that money, they cannot function in a household. Go ahead.
Yes, yes, I understand your point of view too. I mean, if they're younger or, I mean, they're usable. I mean, it's not usable. I mean, they're more, you can put them into some location and say, okay, we're here, we're there. You answer the phone, you write the things. We have it's whatever it needs to be done, say in mayor office. Okay, so, okay, if it's not mayor office, then what you should do, I mean, is this woman's
Look at
but though I cannot go work, they already, whatever work has been done, is the retirement, really, you can, it's very hard for them to retrain them. So what will happen in that case, please?
well, they don't have to work because they're drawing, those women are drawing their social security and their pension. So literally in a situation like that, there are other men that have social security that they can bring their social security with them and they combine it together. Now they penalize the two people for having social security. They should take that law out so that these people can live. They're living below poverty level as it is. See, we've created the rich and the poor, and the rich keep getting richer and the poor keeps getting poorer. And it is almost a disgrace to retire after working 36 years because you're penalized for making over the amount of the guideline. See, the only way that's lifted is when you're fully at 66 age of years. Now you are not penalized anymore. There's a way we can fix this problem with society having, if you go into most homes, the immigrants, the African American, their household net worth is so much lower than any other non-African American. And they're not faring well because marriages become, they get in trouble when there is not enough finance to balance all of the bills. And then that spouse has to get up and go to work when they're possibly not able. And with all the legacies that they have, well, I would say this, with all of the people who have gotten their reparation and are living off of it, like the Native Americans, there needs to be a reparation given to African Americans too, because they have penalized us. They're torn our families up, literally torn up our families, sent our men to be studs and displaced him from the home and during the Jim Crow law. And then eventually when the woman does, get her credentials and move up, now she got to be the man and the woman, and the children are not being cared for. So our children are suffering the most. So Black families and minority families are being destroyed because these women have to get out and work all types of hours and no one's at home preparing meals or dinners. So they can only hope to get married someday. They know they're not marriage material because they're not at home being a housewife. Nobody wants to be a housewife anymore. There should be incentives paid to women for wanting to be a housewife. I'm a master's degree teacher, and I knew the benefit of being a housewife. I was trained to be a housewife, all 10 of my sisters and I. So we looked for the opportunity, but no one sees that as being a specialty of being a housewife. So they frown upon it. But if you paid them enough money to sit at home and to rear children and to interact with their children in school, they would do it at any time. Most women cry when they have to drop their child off at daycare. So we got broken homes, and we're constantly saying we don't need polygamy do need polygamy to fix this problem that we have. I am a family educator. I had a marriage and family therapist in here yesterday, and we are trained to do just the opposite. We're trained to do something stupid when we should be uprooting these concepts and reintroducing what the ancient people did long time ago that worked for us.
Yes, I understand completely. How about if we change this system, brutal system that we have in the United States? If we change it, and if everybody gets free Medicare for all, universal basic income of 1,500 per person, and it doesn't matter even if you are getting your pension or any other thing, and free tuition for everyone. So isn't that would be better to fix this system if it's fixable? I think this bloody system we have is fixable. If we fix the system, then then everybody gets education, because we are going to the robot transition. You know that. Right now, you go to many of your stores. I don't know where you're located. XYZ estate. You go now. They have new machine. It's small hand. It's a small handle. You scan it, and they know that this belongs to you. And every time you go buy something, you scan it, so it goes into their system and accept maybe fruits or a few kind of fruits, etc. And then you go ahead, and the robots now, self-checkers, what it does, it's already replaced 9 jobs in supermarkets, in each one of them right now. So these people, 9 more people are out of jobs. We have 30% unemployment in this country, if we want to know the true amount.
So,
Mike,
Mike, are you saying that if they are you saying that if they create these high tech jobs, then they can function better, but we're losing employment? So we're taking the jobs away by the high tech.
Yeah, that's why universal basic income is to give you some free education plus 1,500 you will have. Pretty much you can live.
Mike.
Things. I mean, Andrew Yang. If you go to Yang2020.com, YANG2020.com, you will see what you want bring for United States or Bernie Sanders. They're very close to each other. So whether Andrew Yang become president of USA or Bernie Sanders, we must support these two for sure and change the communities. So we don't have to look for polygamy, etc., to solve our problems.
Well, it's going to take, Mike, think about it now. It's going to take a holistic approach. Not just one thing can solve it, and not just one leader. And that's where we placed our hopes in before, with just one leader, and then they let us down. It's going to take a whole host of things to change. I noticed that they talked about giving everyone an actual a salary of $1,000 per month that would help them over the hump, and everyone would get that. Yeah, and even at 1,500, see what you're gonna run in.
They give them 2,500, by the way.
Right.
In Sweden, they give 2,500. In Africa, they give them about because Africa is a little bit different. They give them about 2,000 a year.
Okay.
Something like that.
Well, but let me ask you a question.
Universal basic income, because robots are coming and taking all our jobs.
Yes.
As you go to supermarket today or next day, remember that Mike told you.
And Mike, they have.
I mean, there were only one.
Mike, they proposed that They did propose that, and they said that would solve the reparation problem. They said that, but it didn't make sense to give it to the rich because that's going to be their chump change, and they don't need it. But what we're looking at is the haves and have not. See, the rich keeps getting the benefit. They did give out a tax bill, but the rich are going to benefit from that tax bill, not those who are not paying taxes, like the welfare recipient. They'll get more on the tax return, but they're not going to benefit from that tax break. The large businesses are. So what we're looking at is that we have got to look at a communal lifestyle. And when we look at a communal lifestyle, people work in a communal setting. It doesn't have to do with our old antiquated ways of going to work. You can still produce work without having to leave, to burn up the fuel, to congest the highways. You can still remotely work from home, and work can be downloaded to you at home. Sizable work that is equitable and that is productive, because man needs work because it makes you legitimate. When a person doesn't have work and they're given everything, they soon lose their characteristics for being a truly human being. It does something to them that they cannot work from the sweat of their brows. So if everyone is wired up, now that we've got these mobile phones, smartphones, you can work off these smartphones. Give everyone a mobile smartphone and give them a task to do and let them earn their own keep. You would create a better society. Now, polygamy is not all outcast, because you have some households have bought homes and they need the space, and there's people have lost their homes, and now moving in with people is the thing to do, because they're looking at the cost reduction. They're looking at how in Germany, they do this. Most people move in 3 and 4 families together. And America is not even thought about doing this, but it would help those women who've lost their home, who are now sleeping under the bridges. There are too many people under the bridge, and we can't have that in a society that's supposed to be free. These people must be placed in homes, and they must have the benefit of the all-American dream of owning property. So everyone should be able to own property. No one should be staying in crowded apartments or under the bridge. This is hideous. And then yet we say we're trying to build better families. Our families.
That's the fault of the system there. That's the fault of the brutal system of capitalism. Unless we bring human capitalism back, then we have a lot of problems. Capitalism means government of corporation, for the corporation by the corporations, but we want true democracy in the United States. And we never had it. America was never great at all. America, from the day one, aristocracy ruled America. Aristocracy says who will be the next president of the United States of America. I mean, Hillary Clinton brought the most votes, more than Trump, but electoral college, that is very bad. We have to abolish electoral college. Electoral college somehow brought Donald J. Trump, a fascist, a person who is brought racism so much to this country. Everywhere you go, 5,000% increase in racism, and a lot of issues because Donald Trump is white supremacy, and he's also obese, like 93 million Americans. Go ahead, please.
Well, because this topic is not about Trump today, I know that a lot of things are broken. However, I would say that we do need to secure our country, and what he's doing in trying to secure our country is a step in the right direction, because we certainly cannot have people coming into our country and heating up on us additional commitment to imprison, because we should not be imprisoning people and taking in overloads of people in our prison system. And that's what's happening, because if those people have to be locked up, then that's hard on the economy because now taxpayers are paying for them to be locked up. So I think Trump is working in the right direction in trying to secure our country. And that's all I want to say on that subject, because we got to get security and we got to get, people out of here that are coming here with criminal records. We can't have that. And I
Yeah,
just,
I understand that portion, but we have also problem that Amazon treat their employees very bad. I mean, Amazon wanted to go to Long Island, New York, and AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she prevented because we need a uniform jobs for Amazon, and we need a human, environment.
well, my,
Amazon, it has what 140 billion strong. Why not Amazon and Microsoft together pay for that bar?
well, there are so many problems everywhere you look that need to be resolved.
Nobody is going to close up the government in 6 months down the road again, and things will. Okay, here's a wall. Let's see how many. 90% of all the heroin, hashish,
Now, it's not, Mike, let me ask you a question. Are you saying that okay. Are you saying that you don't think that polygamy would actually help in this case, in the crisis that we're in? I think maybe you probably know it firsthand. Yeah, I've seen.
All manufactured crisis. We entertain us to put us in a box right now. So if you think outside the box, like you and me, then
well, here's where I'm coming from. I'm looking at the welfare. I'm looking at the welfare perspective. There is a large number of women on welfare and who are scheduled to have their Section A's taken. That can be resolved. We are a throwaway society. We have homes that are laid up that can be refurbished, and there can be a bidding system for these women to ascertain their home, and with their home, a potential husband come with it. Because that's something that the All-American Dream has never given us through our reparation or through giving, you must remember, we were the Black African Americans who during Jim Crow law, the immigrants came and we gave them our lot, we gave them our 160 acres, and the government gave them additional land, and we gave them $150, and we showed them how to work the land, and we walked away with nothing, but yet they keep telling us to pull ourselves up by the bootstrap when we don't have any straps to pull ourselves up with. We've never been given reparation, and to give us this sum of money once a month is one thing, but we need to resolve a couple of things here. Are we going to function as a nation waiting for someone to feed us hand to mouth? Are we going to function as a legitimate organization that can establish work if the bids and the grants are given to people who want to set up their business, then let them, because society will never work when you have a lopsided where one group of people is given everything and they're ruling while the other ones are barely existing. And that's what's happening. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poor. So I mean, when they came to their decision, well, Mike, when they came to the decision to say, okay, we're going to give reparation to all these people, I have a whole list of them. They didn't have to spend years and eons of meetings to make the decision. They made those referendums effective and they paid them. Now, when it comes to other people who made this country, we African Americans have built this country through our sweat for free. We never been paid for it. And Black people are not dumb. Well, you must remember that cheap. Wait a minute, Mike. Let me finish. Cheap labor is still going on today. And off the backs of Blacks, cheap labor went on and the country was built, but yet we don't have the beauty and the glory of enjoying the basic essentials of owning homes and owning business. That has got to be given back. Or else at the turn of the century, when we start recognizing the 400 years that we've been out, we're going to be given the rulership anyway. So we might as well position ourselves for it because it's our time now. We've waited long enough. Our families are dismantled. Our men are locked away. You've got to recognize the fact that you cannot keep strong men locked away for crimes that you're now endorsing marijuana that you've locked them away for. That doesn't make sense. So you gotta give those men back because they have children at homes and wives at home that have been sitting there, and these women have tried to work all these jobs and they've worked their children out of the home. Now they don't have a family. Now we've got social society taking these children, placing them in homes. That's all got to be corrected. We got to build the family now. We must build lower socioeconomic families, black, white, indifference, Creoles, all of them, because we've done something to destroy humankind. We've destroyed the family, and we cannot go on like this.
But the reason is very clear. In Jewish people, when Nazi Hitler Germany, they sued them later on when Hitler was gone, and each one got at that time a rebate from all this slavery of the Jews and put them in the Primus in Nazi Hitler Germany. They have to do with every black man in United States of America.
Yes.
They should give every distribution from slavery to Black Wall Street to Mama Abu Jamal and to Move 9. They have to give retribution.
Right.
Check, special rebate, check us for back the community. What do you
Well,
think of that?
I feel that what you're saying is all correct. I feel that it is a shame to see mothers on TV crying out about their EBT card, and mothers on TV who are talking about losing their Section A. It makes the third world country stop and think. Over in Germany, they are given, the high school students are allowed to go and get 2 years when they graduate, 2 years of the associate degree and get some trades license to go to work. They're given that opportunity, but we're miseducated and given education in special ed that you can't even go and get a job with. So it's like children graduating with an incompetent credential that they can't use. It's like they sold a forfeit. And then we're study putting children in special ed, knowing that they can only get a certificate of completion that won't even allow them to register for the United States Army. So then you got people coming out that are imbeciles and coming out of the school in special ed and can't work anywhere but McDonald's, and they cannot even make enough hours or income to purchase an apartment. So they're doing a disservice. And then when we talk about reparation, they're looking at us like we've lost our mind when we can't even reap the benefit of all of the labor that our ancestors produced. And then when we ask for give us reparation, they're saying that's never going to be done. Well, I have news for them that a system don't have to worry about it, that the bare universe will take its turn on society if it's not just. A society that's not just, the actual universe will turn on it. And that's what's happening now. The universe is coming to support and enforce that which is wrong. And you cannot have a group of people that come from a rich country and then you run to their country to try to take over. Now, when they decide to stand up and rebel against it, you're saying they're wrong. How could you go to Africa and take over that continent, and say, we want all the resources, we're going to control all the resources? This mentality has to stop. But getting back to looking at our polygamy, I sincerely believe that if not polygamy, something close to it has to be introduced. Something close to it has to be introduced because we're going to have to take a change and a new direction for correcting the shortage of men for these women who who so desperately would love to be married and want to maintain a household. But we cannot keep saying that we got all these welfare mothers when we're creating this scenario. And at the same time, we have an agency that's stepping in and saying we're going to take the children out of the mother's possession because they're going to destroy the child. Now the child is being destroyed even more. It would have been better to leave the child in the presence of the mother's home. And now you got a situation of child trafficking, all kinds of stuff. So we got a messed up society, and most blacks don't like looking at what's happened to their community. And and most blacks want to do something about it to make a change. So when you have all these referendums and meetings and bills are passed, we should be about the business of passing bills that's going to uplift some of the struggle against the black family, some of it at least.
But absolutely okay. But I mean, we probably we don't need even polygamy. We need just five, six women with low income. They come together and really be one unit. And you know, start get a house with 3, 4 bedroom in it. Each one of them they have their own security, and nobody is going to come to their but then on top of that is so the next time they few months they put all the things together, they buy a new car. Okay, so we got this point. So what would happen? Again, we need to but let's go one person at a time. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, Mike, when you look back over all of the people like the Japanese who were given their reparation, and then the Jews, and then various Native Americans, 92% of most African Americans have Native American quantum blood running through their veins, but they were denounced as the freedmen who were free slaves who were in cohabitation by the Native Americans. The Native Americans gave them nothing. They asked the Native Americans to give them land, but they didn't. See, they voided us of land. I'm not so worried about the money as I am about the land. That land should have been divvied out to us a long time ago. And with that land, we can reproduce it. I've seen land swindled out of my family's hand in the South, like 20 going north, when it was in the name and it was supposed to stay in that name. Black folks need some land. We need some land and geographical areas where we have been allocated to live. Because we are farmers, we can produce, we can manage on our own, but we need that little help where you pull the bootstraps up and give some land, and then also give an exemption on the taxes so you can free up the leverage. And guess what? If it doesn't happen, and if somebody doesn't come and offer us that, the ancestors themselves are going to step in. And I don't know if you remember Bookman Dadi and Jean-Jacques Dessalines. They went to their ancestors about this problem, and they couldn't do it on their own because they weren't a big enough army. And when they went to their ancestors, they obliged them, and they came up out of the grave to produce that army to go and win not one time, but 2 times. And see, the ancestors are invisible, and they are there to assist when something is not right. And this isn't right. And we can't keep explaining to someone and explaining it away why it's not right. you have to have the indubitably ability to want to do the right thing so that it will go well with your children. Do you not know when you do something that is hideous and wrong to a race of people, it comes back to visit your lineage of children, even after you've gone down to the 1,000th generation. So this is an urgency of saying, yes, I'm introducing polygamy, that it might save our households and our Black women, that it might uproot them from the low status that they're at. But that might not be the solution, but there are many more in the wing that we need to implement to make a difference and giving our women a chance to be at home raising their children, not having their children in foster care home. Good women who've lost their children because they did not have enough money to move into that house to get 3 and 4 bedrooms. So now their children are taken away. All this is wrong. It's an indictment against Black people who serve this country well. We've given our hard-earned time and we've given our commitment, and even the treaties that were given to us were broken. The treaties have to be put back in place. There's a whole lot that I can talk to Trump about. I'm not just talking about no wall. I'm talking about setting things right with the African Americans. And when you do that, you'll be blessed down to the 1,000th generation, because we're the first world indigenous Aboriginal people who came here and taught people how to walk upright, taught him how to have reasoning, and yet we're forgotten about, and they think because they are miseducating us that we don't have in our Costic records the ability to pull from what our ancient ancestors left us with. And they left us with reasoning. So let's come together and reason together.
Okay, yeah, I accept everything you said. I am myself anti-racism. I hate racism of any kind to anybody, basically. But unfortunately, our country right now, with political division, with the class division, with the racial division, with the other divisions that they have put on us, we are not a country anymore. We are not United States of America anymore. We are the United States of America. And then if we are disunited, then we are going to fall like a banana, my dear. And it will happen because united we stand, divided we fall.
And you know, on that note, Mike, that is a good statement. And I appreciate all your comments, and what you brought out is something that I wanted to say, but you said it in a way that makes a lot of sense. When we're trying to fix families, there's a lot wrong. We don't even know which direction to come at. So we try to come back with something that might have previously been used in society that was workable. And we're asking as a just service to our Black women who are struggling and who are trying to pull themselves up. And people are rooting for those women, because those are the women who actually nursed and rocked the cradle of civilization. We brought all civilization into being. And I hate to see them struggle like that. And I hate to see my sisters under the bridge and holding signs up, can you give something so that my children can eat? I hate to see that, because it breaks my heart, because injustice to one is injustice to all. And we must fight against that because of the fact that women need to be in homes and able to care for their children. It's their first birthright to want to rock their own child's cradle and give them love. But when you have stress, frustration, and shortage of money besetting you, it is hard to do that and be able to manage your children. And sometimes these mothers get short-tempered and they do need a stress break, but they don't need their children taken away from home. And I teach child development, and for every mother, They're not born with this gift. They have to be taught this gift. And if anything, we can make available to these mothers child development classes to help them to become better mothers instead of snatching their children out of their home, creating another haven for their children. Now you've got children that need therapy. So we are creating problems for the Black race that don't have to exist. And for the low income people that come here off the boats, they're making it so rough for them so they can't survive. And that's wrong. But yet, like I said, with the prayers of the people, that the universe itself is going to come back and take revenge over the unjust things that are wrong. We don't have to lift our hand. We don't have to create an army. The universe will speak out against this injustice. And over time, you're going to see it. And that's just my take on it. And I'm going to let you have the last words. And ladies and gentlemen, Mike has been here talking with me about polygamy. And
I appreciate you, my dear. And what's your beautiful name is? I couldn't find it.
Omi Inca. I'm Omi Inca 7. Yeah.
Omega 7. Okay. Yes, sir. Right now, as you said, universe will respond to all these injustices around the globe. Right now, Ring of Fire is super active. We had just last night or 2 nights ago, depends where you live, full moon and called a snow moon, and that's brought lots of more activity to Ring of Fire from Vancouver, Canada to San Diego, and so and Turkey shaking, everywhere shaking, and all these calamities that we have experienced. Texas was underwater last year, California underwater. I mean, we saw the fires in California, fires in Oregon, fires everywhere, fires in Greece, fires in UK. I mean, absolutely. Universe is going to respond to all.
Yes, yes.
It's hey, killing your axe.
Well, thank you so much, Mike.
Thou shalt not kill.
Yes,
Love
yes,
your neighbor as thy yourself.
yes.
And if you don't listen, we are going to shake up this planet with police and the greatest threat.
All right. And ladies and gentlemen, on that note, we're all out of time here in the Oracle Divination Network room. And we thank Mike so much for being on our show and responding. Thank you so much, Mike. And do call in again. We'd love to hear from you. And we're going to work it out, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to work it out for the benefit of all. So stay tuned for tomorrow's session. I'll talk with you later. Oh, double.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.